I'm sorry.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at villageXchange@gmail.com and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Hello, dear listener.
Be excited. Be very excited.
Be very excited. The time has arrived.
One of the greats is returning to the channel.
Yes. This is Behemoth. And we are legitimately Christians, so we're going to have to say a little prayer for forgiveness for even listening to this tripe. But you know, we're like to think ourselves as open-minded people. Obviously, not so open that our minds fall out of our heads, but we do believe that we're open-minded people. So we're here to give the homie a fair hearing. Let's hear what the brother has to say. Can you plug in that the audio thing?
Yes.
This is our good friend Nergal from the Good Band.
And if you want to see that interview we did with him. Wait,
you're gonna have to wait. We had a give Vin and Sori an interview movement like when we first started the channel, and we came within 5 hours of actually landing a sit down interview with the homie.
Well, we had one and it got canceled, so
yeah.
So re-hook us up with what, Nergal?
Yeah, Nergal. What's up with that, Nergal? Okay, so he's got a new joint. They've got a new joint out. Actually, a funny story is no, we're not gonna tell that story. We'll tell it later, inshallah. Okay, so here we are, Behemoth. The name of the song is something about Golgotha. What did it say, babe? What's the name of the song?
I've actually got the lyrics up over here.
Oh, okay.
Right here. Shadows of EA. I don't know what EA would be sounding like. Cast upon Golgotha.
Shadows of EA cast over Golgotha. Okay, so there we go. Also, shout out to my sister Michelle. She is now pregnant. Congratulations!
Yay! Like the poet?
Yeah, Michelle, the poet. Yeah, she's pregnant.
Congratulations!
So she's a month in. I would dedicate this song to you and your new family, but this is Behemoth, so I'm not going to do that.
Probably not one you want dedicated to your child.
Yeah, not going to be able to do it.
Oh
okay.
my gosh, it's literally stuck on the leg.
Okay, Perkinos in the house. All right, guys, so we're about like 20 seconds away from jumping into this joint. Sori had to get her thingamajiggy.
Yeah.
We're going to do that and make sure that our stuff is...
Looking forward to it.
Doesn't
Ready?
melt. All right, let's go. Behemoth. Let's go. Okay, 3 crosses upside down. No surprise there.
Oh, I didn't even realize that's what that was.
You know what? I'm going to make us small.
Yeah.
Looks like the Passion.
Wow. That is one thing with Nergal stuff, is that, well, behemoths, but I guess. Anyway, it's that the lyrics themselves have so much depth. The music has like a whole different depth of sound. And then like what you see visually is also like a whole nother thing. It's almost like you need to listen to it at least 3 times to experience all 3 aspects of it.
Yeah.
Because I was watching the visuals and then I felt like I was missing the sound and also missing the lyrics. Mm-hmm. Some of the videos, I'm like, I don't need to watch this. I'm going to watch the lyrics. But this one, it was very... And I knew that was Isaac before you did.
Yeah. It's a really... Yeah, you have to be very, very familiar with the Bible and the intertestamental literature to really understand anything, to even
yeah,
hope to try to understand anything Nergal is saying or trying to say. The god Ea or Ea, or he calls it I think he just says it E, right? He just calls it E. Is basically the god of fluid or water or whatever. So, you know, if you're, one of the themes of the song was blood. Mm-hmm. So I think he's focusing on the blood right thingamajiggy. But I'm sure there's a lot of depth to it as well. Am I the only one beholding the sunrise in the ganglion of deathless nights? Drought I became for all those at the bottom. See, he became a drought, but he was a god of the water. Mm-hmm. See, as I shed lion skin off my back into dismal deserts I crawl, which is really interesting because Jesus talked about that it was a very common intertestamental belief that the desert or the wilderness, the Greek word is the same in the New Testament, that was the abode of demons. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Jesus said when a demon is cast out of a man, it goes to waterless places,
right,
or deserts or whatever. And then it basically says if the guy who had the demon exorcised from him doesn't repent, basically, and get right relationship with God, the demon that was cast out that went to the desert brings back 6 of his buddies, and they come back. And well, then there's 7 of them, right? Mm-hmm. So he's six in one. And then now the guy's inhabited by 7 demons, and then Jesus says the case of this guy is worse than the original case. Yeah. And we know from Mr. Hoffman, as well as some of the split brain stuff that I've been looking at, it is split brain stuff is really interesting. So basically, you've got the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and then there's I forgot what they call the thing that connects the left and the right. Well, with some people, it's split. So what ends up happening is that they have 2 minds in the same person. This is very, very interesting. And it's not like... What
do you mean they don't have that middle piece?
It's not split personality, and it's not like schizophrenia or schizoaffective. It's... They literally like think... They have 2 minds, and sometimes they don't agree with each other. So like there's one experiment about a guy who's, you know, hitting his left hand because he's saying it's like out of order and it won't follow directions. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why did you do that? And the right side of his brain was going after the left side of his. It was just really, really interesting stuff.
What did it sound like? A conversation?
Yeah, it sounded, when the woman was talking about the experiment. I'll try to find the experiment, put the link in the description because it's mind-boggling stuff. But basically, when they were interviewing this person or one of the persons or one of the consciousnesses, whatever you want to call it, like, why were you doing that with your other hand? And she was saying, well, because it wasn't following my directions. But then the hand had a mind of its own on the other side because it was, it's just really, really crazy mind-bending stuff where you had multiple consciousnesses in a single person. Really interesting stuff. And she called it lefty and righty. She called the left hemisphere lefty and the other one righty, and they had different agendas, goals, whole 9 yards. It was insane. The corpus callosum.
What is that, the middle piece?
That's that middle piece that happens at the split brain. I knew with Steven or Perk in the house.
You know what's crazy? People are not going to believe this story, but I knew someone, the college that I actually went to, one of the teachers got pregnant, and then all of a sudden she wasn't around. She was like on a ton of bed rest and stuff, and then everybody was praying like crazy. Apparently her baby, looking at the ultrasounds or whatever, they figured out that the baby didn't have the middle part of its brain, just the right and the left side, but there was not that connector piece.
Yeah.
Which I think basically makes your brain not really function. He wouldn't be able to walk, and there was like all these different things. Anyway, the whole school was praying like crazy, and then he was born without that piece, but he rolled over sooner than normal babies. And he was walking before most kids walk. Like, all his stuff, he hit his milestones sooner than later. And he's functioning without that piece, like, as a complete miracle. And his mother knew that was going to happen. She said it.
It's the whole thing?
She said he was going to be fine and that he was going to be able to function without it.
Oh.
Or either the mother or the father, one of them said that he was going to be able to do whatever without it. Which is obviously crazy, like, that. But it was one of those things where it's like a medical anomaly. But anyway.
Yeah. It's really, 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 really interesting stuff. I put something up from Science Daily about the stuff, so I'll put that up in the what do you call it?
In the chat.
In the link in the description. But it's really, really fascinating stuff. This split brain stuff. And I don't know how we got onto the split brain thing, but back to the conversation at hand. We need the battery. So I think he's writing from the perspective of that guy. So he became a drought for all those at the bottom. So maybe he's saying because he's a god of water. So maybe he's saying that he, expended, all of his, powers to save people at the bottom. Drought I became for all those at the bottom as I shed lion skin off my back. Oh, and then it's into dismal deserts I crawl, which is about, the demons going into the deserts and then all that stuff. To sustain my pilgrimage on the earth, within your blood I submerge, my Lord, within your blood I am drenched. That's interesting. So is he talking about Christ, or is a demon talking to Christ, or what? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it has to be Christ. Who else could it be?
It's true.
He was drenched in their blood, and Jesus died and lost all his blood right there.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. So here's Jambi.
Oh my gosh! You know what it probably means? It probably means, okay, so that one god, the AE god or whatever, he probably, so he went through a drought because he was separated from, I guess, whatever makes him, he likes to be in water. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's a god of fluids or
right,
whatnot.
but he had to separate himself from that so he could come to earth. It's weird because it almost seems like another incarnation, and then he submerges himself in the blood of Jesus, and that's how why does he say my Lord? But I was going to say within
Jesus is the Lord of all the demons and all.
Well, yeah, I didn't know if they would say that though. But he submerges himself in that blood and maybe drenches himself, so then he's not in a drought anymore. So he survives through the blood of Jesus. That's this other God. Mm-hmm. So he's victorious and survives at the death of Jesus.
That might, That's really interesting. I would not put it past Nergal. Of course, Jambi.
Yeah, what did Jambi say?
So he talked about how that mom prayed for her kid or whatever.
Yeah.
He goes, that kid was so lucky that the people's prayer changed God's plan. This is one of the reasons that Jambi will never actually have a debate, because he thinks things like that are an argument. Jambi, what that means is that God decreed the mother's prayer into his plan. That's what that means. So it didn't change any plan at all. So there's that. Okay, we continue. Ether above, black earth below, water surround. Ether above, black earth below, water surround. Fire flows inwards. That's really interesting because...
Remember it says he separated the waters from the waters?
Yeah. And Shemayim is actually really interesting. Shemayim, I was just listening to something from Michael Brown. The Ayim means water. Mm-hmm. Think like Shemayim, which is what we call the heavens. Mm-hmm. It means literally like sky water or something like that. So yeah, that does sound a little bit like the flood narrative, right? Where the waters were above the, in the sky or whatever. Yeah. That line is insane. No words can voice the poetry of my wrath.
Literally, I saw that one and I was going to comment on that one.
That is such a brilliant line. because there is something beautiful about wrath to a degree. You know, like...
Yeah, especially if it's expended on something that is honorable.
Yeah. I was in a situation yesterday where...
I literally thought of that situation.
Where I was in...
Not that I thought the whole thing was honorable, but...
I was completely wrathful. And I was temporarily insane. Like, I used to think that the whole temporary insanity thing was bullshit. But it wasn't bullshit. I was temporarily insane. And bless God, God protected me that day. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never said, every time I talk about it, like, I never say, like, God protected the dude from me. Like, God protected me from being... You know how people say, oh, you know, that was stupid, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't have said that. Like, I wouldn't have said, oh, I was being stupid. Like, I was temporarily insane. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you think you're at a certain place, and then something happens, and God's like...
Right.
This is where you actually are. Mm-hmm. You see that latency? That's why. So, you know, it was one of those things where God's like, this is where you actually are. You have not left I've left certain, like, jobs behind, but obviously, like, I have to contend with the fact that certain things are obviously still part of my makeup. But that's why I'm very happy that I've never ever pretended to be anything other than what I am. So, but at the same time, what I was wrath, it was really interesting because, you know, no one can voice the poetry of my wrath. So basically something happened with one of the kids, and I was not at home. I was actually getting a haircut. So I come back home, and, you know, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but long story short, like, I went to go find some people, and thank God I didn't find them. But there was a, you know, situation. And it was crazy too, but anyway, but there's like, I don't know, like 10, 15 people there, and like you know, so anyway, I said what I ever said to those dudes or whatever, and we couldn't find the person, so like I was circling around the block, like it was just yeah, and yeah, if I'd have found the guy, like I would have, yeah. But what was crazy about it was God said, excellent, good, now you got that out of your system, now you got to go apologize to all them dudes. So I had to jump in my car and like find these people and like apologize to them, and which I had a real problem with. I'm like, these guys are like 6'2", 6'3". There's one African dude was like 6'3". There's another one's like 6'4". I'm like, there was 10 of them, and there's only me. Like, why should I have to apologize? Like, because he was like, you were not being Christ-like, and that's why you have to apologize. So I rolled up on the guys, and they were like, and I was like, yo, my bad, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't have done that. I lost my temper, yada, yada, yada. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. So I'm going back, and one of the dudes from that crowd like runs up to me, and I'm like looking at him like, what's up? And he's like, hey, I never had a dad growing up, so to see you going like that to defend your son is like pretty cool to see, because I never had a dad. And then he talked to me about other stuff too, and you know, I was able to tell him like, look, man, you don't have a dad, but you know, I'm in the neighborhood, so if you need anything, there's my door. Anytime you need anything, I got you. But the point was, the reason I'm bringing it up is that line really struck me, the poetry of my wrath, because I wasn't feeling, you know, we talk about this all the time. Like, I don't really traffic in guilt. I just don't traffic in guilt. So I wasn't feeling guilty about it, but God was like, you got to apologize to that guy. And I'm like, man, fuck that guy, bro. Like, XYZ. And he goes, yeah, but you were wrong. So like, I wasn't walking around feeling sorry for them dudes. Like, you know, like I said, I was temporarily insane. Like I wanted, you know, whatever. But for that kid to come up to me and say, hey, you know, like he was in the situation, but he was like kind of outside of it. He was like, man, it was just, it's cool to see that because I never had a dad. And obviously that breaks your heart as a, you know, to hear that from some kid. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, man, there was still some beauty there because that kid is watching it and going, this is how fathers and sons really are. And this is how it's supposed to be. And I could tell that it was like an impactful moment for him. And, you know, Dorian was just trying to, he handled it in a way more mature Christ-like situation than me. I was just, you know, the Bible says the wrath of man doesn't accomplish anything. But, I mean, I was in straight up wrath mode. And thank God that he protected me from that horrible situation. Holy moly.
Yeah, he did.
Huh?
See, when I heard this part, no words can voice the poetry of my wrath, that part to me was, well, you were very wrathful. And I don't necessarily think that it was going to, you know, if it would have gone the way you wanted to go, I don't think that it would have been a good ending. But I think that the poetry of wrath was, you know, the love of a father and a son and how you felt in that moment and how it initiated you to go and do something. It brought you to action. And, you know, even though you were temporarily insane, you know, you came around and God brought you back around and you went and apologized and the thing, you know, went in a totally different direction than anyone would have expected. But, I don't know. I mean, the kids were asking me, what would you have done? What would your friends have done in a situation like that? And I said, none of us were ever in a situation like that. So it's hard to say what would have definitively happened. I don't think that everybody would have reacted like some of the people reacted around there. But I don't really know because nobody's in that situation. But to see someone, like, I think I was always surrounded by people that would say, man, I'll tell you what, I was about to, oh, if he would have, I would have, you know, and nobody ever did anything. Everybody was always just talking. And so, you know, like you went and took action to make sure that he, you know, was protected. But anyway, so it was poetic in a sense of beautiful between a father and a son.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's not one of those things where like, oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. No, I'm not. Like, I'm not ashamed of it, and I don't feel guilty about it. Stuff happened, and you know. But it was a very challenging. Somebody went after Dorian with a stick and like completely. Dorian is extremely chivalrous. He has rules for fighting and things of that nature. And so, like, he put the weapon down. The kid picked it up and wailed on him with a stick. And Dorian, like, you know, just stood there and made sure that, you know, he took care of his sister and all the rest of it. So I went to go find this dude. And there was a bunch of people. There were a bunch of people down there. And I rolled up on all of them. And I was just, like, insane. I was absolutely insane. And but the most challenging thing about that whole situation, because it was the hottest day of the year yesterday, and it was also the last day of school, so everybody's out. Dorian's got his shirt off, so this kid's hitting Dorian, and he had no shirt on, so you could see just everything. Of course, Dorian, I didn't know how much of a high pain. I mean, you know, when I grapple with him and stuff, he's got a pretty high pain tolerance, but I mean, dude was walking around like, I'm good, father, blah, blah, blah. We took him to the beach later. He jumped right into salt water. I mean, the dude is like, but what was crazy to me, the most challenging thing God said to me in that whole situation, I was looking at my son and I couldn't even, it was one of those things where like you had to look at it, but I couldn't look at it at the same time. And I was so furious. And I remember at one point at night, last night, I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was so furious because you know, the situation had happened, all the situation with the guys had happened, but this is the first time in my life in a situation where I felt like I'm going to really, really, really do something, and I haven't been able to do it. Every other time I've been in a situation like that, and I've had that taste in my mouth, like I have been able to relieve that buildup. And I'm not in that context anymore. And I realize, like, I don't know how to handle that degree of anger without some sort of violent solution. So that was one thing that I was really being challenged about. But the other thing that was challenging to me was God basically said, these are the wounds of Christ, about my son, because it's what I taught him, whether it's defending his sister, speaking up for weaker people, not returning evil because Dorian wouldn't go after the guy with the stick. He wouldn't retaliate with the stick, even though the guy did that to him, which is, again, what I taught him. And so God was just saying, hey,
once he already had the kid down,
he let him go.
He didn't keep going, even though the kid went back after him.
The kid dropped his phone. Dorian picks up his phone.
Gave it to him, yeah.
Later, he told the guy, look, as far as I'm concerned, we're all friends. Like, he did exactly what I told him to do, was completely Christ-like, right down the middle in an extremely complex situation. And God was saying to me, you're upset because your kid is bearing the wounds of Christ, and you don't want that for him. And I said, yeah. If somebody needs to be tore up, let it happen to me. Don't do it to my son. And then God said, okay, now you understand. And I was like, holy moly. And a shout out to M Death Fan, because
he needed you. For sure.
Thank you, bro. So I appreciate that. Thank you for being there for me, my man. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that was the really big thing. Like, and it's really, it's so difficult to explain what it's like when you're having those moments with God, because he was really pushing and challenging me. And I think anybody, if they could have seen Dorian and felt what I was feeling, they'd have been like, man, give the guy a minute to calm down. Give him a minute. But he was confronting me hardcore, like, these are the wounds of Christ, and you don't want that. But you're out here telling people about Jesus and the cost and the price, but you don't want your kid to pay the price. You want to be able to pay it, but you don't want it for your son. And
right.
That's a really, really big challenge. And I don't believe in, like, bullshitting either. And that's how I prosecute my relationship with God. So I was like, yeah, I don't want that. And I'm mad at you. You let that shit happen to him, for sure. Yeah. I was mad at I was the only thing that honest, I'm gonna tell you guys, just like a confession time, I guess. Like, the thing that was in my head was, there's nobody to kill here. Like, that's what was going on in my head. Like, I was it was weird, man. Like, I felt like outside of my own body, and I was just like, yo, man. Anytime we had an issue like that, whether it's, back in the day in high school or other organizations or whatever, like, anytime something like that happening to my people, like, I would comfort myself and my friends by saying, don't, okay, we're gonna make that even, and we're gonna make them feel what we're feeling right now. So yeah, I was temporarily insane, man. But thanks be to God, and thanks be to M Death Fan. Holy moly. Yeah, D's good. He just yeah, I know. So I'm looking at these lyrics in verse 2. No one can voice the poetry of my wrath. No foe dares to challenge my fury. My legion's crushed, yet they speak my names, plural. So I guess that's the demons or whatever, they're destroyed or whatnot. A pale halo casting shades of disgrace. With blood of the Lamb I shall seal this pact amidst the sun and the moon. I am the spear of Longinus. I am the arrows of doom. Okay, so Longinus, or whatever, if I'm pronouncing that right, is the name of the soldier who pierced Jesus' side with the spear, I think. So when he says, yeah, so
what is that, historical?
It's Eusebius, I think. Eusebius is an early church historian. Stephen or Perkinos will know where the Longinus story came from, and when they respond, then I'll let you know. But yeah, that's a crazy. So he's saying he's all these instruments that go to destroy Christ. Basically, is that's one of the things that I think Nergal is overlooking, which is in the New Testament, Jesus's death is looked upon as his penultimate to his greatest victory. I mean, the resurrection is
right.
But even the crucifixion itself is looked upon as a glorious defeat of Satan. So, for example, is it Colossians 2, where it says that Jesus, by his cross, exposed to open shame the principalities and the powers by defeating them by his cross. So the cross work of Christ itself defeated Satan and all the demonic hordes around him. So when you have black metal or extreme dark metal people consistently bringing up the crucifixion, there's a reason that Christians for time immemorial wear crosses with a crucified person on it. It's because Jesus has turned everything upside down. So now what looks like a disgraceful defeat, where he talks about disgrace with a halo or whatever, what looks like a defeat is actually a victory, so that when you start celebrating the death of Christ, you're celebrating the death and the destruction of all of these dark evil spirits. So it's this very strange,
right? Yeah,
it's this very weird. I thought the Passion of the Christ did that very well with the Satan character, who was kind of like this androgynous sort of probably one of the best casting decisions ever.
It was a crazy decision.
That was such a good casting decision, and it was such a brilliant, just aesthetically, the way the person looked. Look, she looked like very serpentine. Yeah, extremely serpentine, bro. Like, it was absolutely crazy. There we go. See, told you. I told you Perkinos would get it. It wasn't Eusebius. It's some pseudepigraphal test, one of the pseudepigraphal gospels. Okay, there you are. So yeah, like it's stuff like that, right? Where it's like, oh, like you're celebrating crucifixion. Well, okay. And even in Revelation, Jordan Peterson says that Revelation was written because Jesus is too nice in the gospel, so it's a way to balance him out because Jesus is mean in Revelation. No, Jesus, the number one designation of Jesus in the book of Revelation is the Lamb, which speaking specifically to his sacrificial nature. There is also in Revelation the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's conquered. But what's interesting is John hears the Lion of the tribe of Judah has conquered. When he turns around to see this conquering lion, what does John actually see?
A lamb.
He sees a lamb as if it had been slain.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So what's the point of what's being said there? What's being said there is that in his greatest moment of weakness or whatever, he was actually a lion in that moment. That's what it's saying. That's how he overcomes his enemies. Like one of the, so I think this is the fundamental misunderstanding with with anytime I see a black metal person talking about the crucifixion or even trying to mock the crucifixion, like the mockery of Christ from a New Testament angle only functions to intensify his glorification. And we know that because Philippians 2 says, have this mind in you, which is the same of Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but emptied himself in making nothing, taking on the nature of a servant, and submitting to death, even death on the cross. Therefore, God has given him the name that is above every name, so that the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So Jesus' willingness to lay all this aside and to be mocked and to be violently destroyed at the cross actually worked to get him a promotion.
Right.
And if he was God in the flesh, how could he have a promotion? And we'll talk about that at a later date, because it's really, really fascinating stuff. And we're already 39 minutes into the review, and you guys don't want to be here for 3 hours when I explain this stuff. So the crucifixion is the most metal thing of all time ever. And I think it's so metal because it's completely counterintuitive to our mindset. If you looked at a crucified person, Isaiah 52 says that he was beaten beyond recognition, beyond the forms of the sons of men. Basically what it's saying is if you saw Jesus on the cross, you wouldn't be able to positively identify that that's a human being.
And you would think he was cursed.
Right? And he was. That's the other thing in Christian theology. One of the crazy things about Christian theology is that I actually was telling the story to my brother yesterday, and he was like completely confused. And I remember being a kid, this is one of the most troubling Bible stories I've ever heard in my entire life. So the Israelites are hanging out in the wilderness and they complain. And Yahweh says, oh, word, you guys are going to complain. I got y'all. So he sends these serpents to bite the Israelites. Now they're in a Middle Eastern context, so it's most likely a cobra, right? So these Israelites, they start dying. Plague is spreading through the camp. And so the Israelites go up to Moses. They say, Ya Rasulullah, we're about to die. We screwed up. Please help us. So Moses prays to Yahweh, and Yahweh says, take your staff and then make a bronze angel, a bronze lamb, a bronze serpent. So Moses builds this bronze serpent, okay, and he sticks it on the pole, and then God says to him, everybody who looks at that serpent will live. And so the picture is the serpent on the pole saves you. Look to this serpent.
I thought it was bizarre too.
I'm like, whoa, like some Satanist found some way. I just want to make this clear. In order to not die, you have to look at a serpent on a wooden pole. That was always troubling to me. Always. Then in John chapter 3, Jesus is talking to Nicodemus. And then Jesus makes it worse. Because Jesus says, as the serpent was lifted up in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. So then I'm like, holy shit. Not only
You just compared that to Christ.
are you saying that we need to look to a serpent to be healed, but now Jesus is taking that onto himself and making a correlation between him and a serpent, which obviously has satanic implications. What is going on? And when I finally found the answer, I said, oh my God.
Tune in tomorrow if you want to hear the rest.
Well, I'm going to say it anyway.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, we should have done that. How do you put this together? Well, it's simple. Is it 2 Corinthians 5? He made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Allahu Akbar. So God all the way back there said, you got stung by a serpent, so I'm going to use a serpent to heal you. Then Jesus says, I am the ultimate picture of that. But then we go, but you're supposed to be the sinless great guy. Yeah, but to Sori's point, anyone who's hung on a tree is cursed in Hebrew theology. And on top of that, Jesus became sin for us. So there is a sense in which when you're looking at that cross, you're seeing the conglomeration of all the sin and evil, human and angelic, in one localized area, which is the body of Jesus Christ. So in that sense, he was the serpent you had to look at, because what really the message is that Jesus absorbed all the poison of sin in himself.
Right.
So that when you look to him, you're now healed of your ultimate sin, which is malady, which is your sin, which is what is killing you. Like sin is presented as this sort of slow-moving toxin that surrounds and engulfs its victims, and it's portrayed as basically this venomous sort of thing that's running through your bloodstream and permeating your person. So when Jesus goes and takes that all onto himself, there's a sense in which he's imaging a serpent. But then what he's really doing is he's draining all of the venom of sin out of us and into him, and then he puts it in the ground so that the old world and everything with it, including all serpents, go in the ground, and then he comes up as a new humanity. So the cross, this is one of the reasons why, like, people like, why are you Christians all the time about the cross? Like, if he died in an electric chair, would you be talking about the holy electric chair? Yes, because of what he accomplished on that cross.
Right.
So when people like bring up the cross and say, I'm going to be the one that kills Jesus, or I'm the spear of Longinus, which is, again, I hope so. I hope, not that you're the spear of Longinus, but I hope that you are him. Why? Because the scripture says that it was a Roman soldier who glorified God and said, truly this man was the Son of God. So inshallah, Mr. Nergal, you are that. Yeah, so I that was the song. I mean, sonically,
was it not as crazy as it usually is?
no, I love it. What they do with their drumming, particularly with their bass drumming, like how they drive the beat in the rhythm section. With it's almost like the bass drum is first; it's more prominent, and then they have very good instincts as to how to combine that guitar sound with what they're doing on the drums. And I got to tell you guys, we've been to a Behemoth show live, and they are. I mean, I'm saying they're better live than they are in the studio. What are your thoughts? I mean, we were right in the front row.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that because just like we talked about here, there's so many angles to it. When you're there, you also add, they're like, I don't know if other bands do this, but I haven't seen another band do this. They burn this incense while they're up there too. So there's like that experience. Haven't we seen them twice?
Yeah, we saw them at
twice.
the Slipknot show too. But yeah, they were doing
their thing before. Everything was just on point.
Yeah.
And then he kept changing costumes, and it was just I thought it better
live. They are absolute.
Yep.
They are absolute monsters live. So, and I heard he recently got convicted of something in Poland, like what do you call it? Harming religious feelings or something like that. Yeah. I think is what it said.
Did it have to do with what he keeps going around statues or something like that, or was it something that he said?
Well, I
in
mean,
the
he's
song?
transgressive. I mean, he goes out of his. I mean, he's Nergal, so he is doing that stuff. But it's hard for an American to understand.
It is. It really is.
Because in America, it's like, okay, they harmed your religious feelings.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very weird.
Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's very strange. So shout out to Nergal, praying for the homie. Long live Poland. But I mean, you got to get a thicker skin, Poland. I mean, like, I don't want to say it's all of Poland. It's the church in Poland. Mm-hmm. I think most Polish people. I mean, what do I know about?
How did you get so weak?
Yeah, what did I know about Polish people? But I am almost certain that. Yeah, you know, I was listening.
Well,
all right.
Anyway.
What do you get the song?
9.7.
Corey goes, it's annually for him. He stepped on a religious book. He does something once a year to piss people off.
Imagine if he did, like, literally
I'm gonna give it
once a year, had to do something.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.9 because I ain't giving no satanic band no 10.
There you go.
But damn good song. Good job.
Check out the album cover if you haven't seen it. It's crazy looking.
Yeah. If you guys, those of you in the fire stream, we're gonna cut this video and start over again. So be on the lookout because we're coming right back. But there you are, dear listener. One of the best in the business. Also become a Christian. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.